First things first, the Lakers are in the market for a point guard. Who's the better option, CP3 or Russ? How about the Dallas Cowboys? They're looking to bounce back after last season. Have they done enough to get to the Super Bowl, Nick? And Tom Brady says his clock is still ticking, so which team will he play for next? Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright. We got Chris Broussard in for Brandon Marshall. We got Kevin Wildes. And Kevin Wildes, can you even imagine Tom Brady, your Tom Brady, playing for a third team?
Well, I could see him playing for a second team twice. That's all I'm saying. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. I've got inside information where he might be headed.
We'll get to Brady in a second. We got to start talking NBA. Giannis closed out the finals with an inspiring 50-point Game 6, good enough for finals MVP honors and many, many sleepless treks around the greater Milwaukee area. Nick, we've checked in a number of times this year on your NBA player pyramid, your hierarchy.
Oh, we have.
Of how the best players in the game rank today. Yes, we have. We're going to do it one final time. You took one last shot at it after the playoffs. Why don't you do this? Take us through the end-of-season edition of your now famous NBA player pyramid.
Oh, okay. Well, it will be the end of season. It will also be the 2021-2022 preseason edition. There will be no major changes. But before I do it, my partner and co-host Brandon Marshall asked me to alert the audience because he would like to be here today. He had travel plans that could not be changed months ago. And he might be on the show because he's here in New York City where I am, because months ago he bought tickets to the Nets championship parade that he thought was going to be happening today. Unfortunately, now he's just going to get to see the great sights of New York City. He will be back tomorrow. But in the meantime, we have the great Chris Broussard here with us to go through the player pyramid. I know what you're thinking. How many people are on the pyramid? Is it a top 20? Is it a top 30? Is it a top 50? It is a top 47. Reveal the bottom two rows, please. These are all top 50 players. You might be like, who the hell is on that? You need to squint a little bit. That's C.J. McCollum. Yeah. Next to C.J. McCollum's Rudy Gobert. Rudy, lucky you made the pyramid, buddy, after that playoff performance. On the far right-hand side, dear God, that's Derrick Rose's music. Next level up, Karl Anthony Towns. Why isn't Towns higher? Hey, here's a crazy idea. Don't consistently be one of the 4 worst teams in the league if you have a great player. I like that idea. Draymond Green there. The only rookie on the pyramid, LaMelo Ball. De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo. Bam was higher. He dropped a bit. So those are the bottom 2 rows. I hear Kevin Wildes grumbling. I'm not sure why he's grumbling. Okay. We have a lot to get through, but Wildes, what's the problem?
I have one tiny interjection, and I don't mean tiny because the heads are literally this small on your television screen. I mean this. Last year's pyramid, Rudy Gobert. You're making me into a Rudy Gobert fan. Yeah. Rudy Gobert was on the 6th tier. Spoiler alert, now he is on the 10th tier. Why did he get demoted? Yeah. Is it because he was Defensive Player of the Year? Is it because the Jazz had the best regular season record in the league? Is it because he led the league in field goal percentage and rebounds and blocks? Or is it because you made a heel turn against the analytics community when people were saying that Rudy Gobert is actually the MVP? Because he should not have been demoted for his performance. Quinn Snyder played him wrong against the Clippers, and he got exposed. Well, you got exposed because you're put in a bad spot. I don't think Rudy Gobert deserves to be on the bottom tier of this. Go. Yeah.
Hold on. You just real quick. You said Quinn Snyder played him wrong. How should he have played him? By played him wrong, you mean played him at all? What okay, there you go. Wildes' adjustment was what Quinn Snyder should have done is bench the guy. You know who should be at the top of the pyramid? Our production staff for finding Rudy Gobert playoff highlights. Well done. I'm sticking with it. All right, reveal the next few tiers. Now it's some players you actually care about, or more players you actually care about. All right, Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton. 3rd best guys on the finalists. They're there. Julius Randle after a rough playoffs. He drops a bit, but hey, it's a hell of a lot higher up than he was before. Now, I know what some people are saying. Nick, you're not killing Ben Simmons for his playoff performance the way you did Rudy Gobert. I'm not, because I think Ben Simmons was more of an aberration. I think Ben Simmons can be an excellent playoff performer. And then there's Chris Broussard, I think is 9th best player in the league. Jaylen Brown right there in the middle tier. All right, this next group of guys, Chris, Kyrie, Beal, Jimmy, Clay, and Paul George, all of them have this in common. If they are your second best player, I think you can win the title. You certainly can go to the finals. We, by the way, have seen 3 of those guys win the title as the second best player. If they're your best player, you're in trouble. Trouble's too strong. You have a ceiling. You're not in trouble, you have a ceiling. Now, this next group is guys 13 through 17. One of these guys, maybe 2 of these guys, is going to take a leap. They are all 24 years or younger. It is Booker, it is Trey, it is Donovan, it is Tatum, it is Zion. I have a feeling there was controversy around one of those guys. Now let's reveal the cream of the crop if we can. With an asterisk. These 2 guys, Kawhi and AD, they're 11th and 12th with top 5 ability. But major health concerns surrounding both of them prevents me from putting them in the top 10. They both have an injury history. They both ended this season injured. So they are on the superstar level. Everyone else you're going to see from them on up are superstars, but they have to be beneath the guys above them. Jokic, Dame, Harden, and CP3. Great players with an obvious weakness. Jokic and Dame, it's defensively. Harden, it's the drop-off from regular season to playoffs. And Chris Paul, it's the inability to finish a season at 100%. Now your top 6 guys in the league. It's unbelievable. One of these guys is not a top 5 player. I think we can show it. There we go. Luka, Steph, Embiid. It hurt my heart, Luka, to not have you higher, but fair is fair. Why is Embiid ahead of Jokic? Because I believe he does almost as much for you on the offensive end and far more than for you on the defensive end. And then your top 3, of course, LeBron and Durant vying to try to take the crown from Giannis. Right now, the undisputed title holder of the league. So there it is, Broussard. It's a perfect 47-person list. Apologies to Christian Wood and Vucevic and a few others who just missed out. But there it is. Chris, I spent a long time explaining that. The reason I felt comfortable doing this is because I imagine all you're going to say is, bravo. Bravo. Your thoughts, please.
Not quite. I will say this, Nick. I'm proud of you. After a year of tutorials from me almost daily on this show, you have learned some lessons. I will give you that, and so I'll give you props. And I'm going to back you up because I know a lot of current and former players are looking at you like you have horns growing out of your head right now because you had Giannis at the top.
Why?
But I'm with you. He deserves to be at the top right now. He's learning how to play to his strengths and hide his weaknesses more. And let me say this about Kevin Durant, because that's the guy that most people think would be above Giannis. First of all, this is not a pyramid of who would win the skills challenge at All-Star Weekend.
Exactly
all
right.
This is not a pyramid of who would win a game of horse. This is about impact on the basketball court. And right now, you can't put KD ahead of Giannis as far as impact. And here's a little note about KD. Now, I know it's a small sample size because he's always had great teammates. But he has never gotten past the second round, never made a conference final without a Hall of Fame superstar teammate by his side. When Russell Westbrook was hurt in Oklahoma, they didn't get past the second round, right? Without an MVP. And you saw this year, didn't get past the second round. So I got to give it to Giannis. I'm there with you on that. As far as some mistakes you made, and I hate to do this because I love this guy, all right? But I've got to switch James Harden and Steph Curry. I'll get to Chris Paul. You got him way too high. But I've got to switch Harden and Curry. During the regular season, Nick, and I think you may have shared this sentiment if you would let yourself get over the way he left Houston. There were times when I thought James Harden had an argument for best player in the league. He was nothing short of spectacular in the regular season. I'm with you on the playoffs. I didn't like the way he ran. I didn't like the way he took on the persona of a Joe Harris rather than playing with that superstar swag in Game 7 against the Bucks when he just gave it to Durant and ran on the side to watch. So I'm with you on there, but I think I'm going to give him a little pass because some of that was the hamstring. So you got to move Harden up. Chris Paul moves down. So the fourth tier should be Jokic, Steph, Anthony Davis, and Kawhi. Now, I get it. You mentioned the injuries, but it's a little confusing. I'm just going to give them their health. I definitely got Anthony Davis is nowhere near the injury concern of Kawhi. So you got to move Davis up. I think you had Davis lower because that'll enable you to give more props to LeBron at some point next season. When he's looking good.
Everyone thinks
I think there's that.
Everyone thinks I'm always doing some weird psychological thing. It's just, I'm just an arbiter of truth. Can I say something about Harden real quick? Because I was talking with a buddy about this yesterday. Because we were talking about Giannis and coming back from the injury. And I was like, injuries are luck, but they're not. And by that I mean, like, Michael Jordan broke his foot his second year and then was healthy forever. LeBron was healthy for 15 straight years. Kareem, aside from the time he punched the guy, was essentially healthy forever. Kobe was healthy for 15 years. And then you look like a guy who I know a lot of people say should be in the top 12, Kyrie. Kyrie, I think it's fair to say, has not always, worked on his body the way other people have. And he's worked on skill, and he's constantly banged up. I don't know if Durant has ever spent 15 minutes in a gym without picking up a basketball, and he's had the injury bug. And you're like, well, Harden, what about Harden? Harden's always been healthy until this year, got unlucky this year. Or the 1 year that Harden decided, I'll come into the season 20 pounds overweight, out of shape, to force my way out of Houston, is the 1 year his body didn't hold up. So maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe a guy who had always been an Iron Man decided to take a different offseason path this year to meet his own ends, and he ends up having a soft tissue injury. I think that's a reasonable assessment of what happened here, and because of that, Broussard, I'm comfortable with Steph being ahead of him. Because Steph didn't see that Clay was out for a year again. It was like, another lost season. I understand, didn't make the playoffs. I get it. I understand. Amazingly, despite not making the playoffs, he had about as much of an impact on the playoffs as James Harden did. It's amazing how that one worked out, Jenna.
All right, it's a great way to start the morning. Great conversation piece. We're going to get Antoine Walker in with us this morning to get his thoughts on Nick's pyramid in just a little bit. We got to take a turn. We got to talk some Tom Brady. Is the GOAT really going to play for a third team, and which could it be? First things first. Time now for Drawing a Blank. We're talking Tom Brady's football future now, which at one point in time would have seemed farcical with regards to a 44-year-old quarterback. But we're talking about the ageless Tom Brady here, who, let's not forget, coming off a Super Bowl win, let's not forget, clearly has more left in the tank. Yesterday, Brady talked about how much longer he'd like to play. Take a listen.
I play because I love the game. I play because I love to compete. We shouldn't stop our life, even though we love something, because it's just someone puts an arbitrary timeline on that. And I felt for a long time I could play till I was 45 years old. I think I committed to say, hey, I'm going to play till I'm 45, and this year I'll be 44, which naturally takes me to next year, and I've got a 2-year contract. We'll see what happens beyond that.
Wow. All right, Broussard. Tom Brady doing the math. Brady playing for a third team would be blank.
Jenna, it would be LeBron-esque. How about that? LeBron-esque. Yes, the two faces of their leagues, the best players of their generation, and they've got some things in common. Number one, they both left legendary, domineering front office figures to prove they could win more championships. And those front office figures Belichick, obviously, with Tom Brady, Pat Riley in Miami with LeBron James, they got a lot of credit for these guys' first championships and teaching them and showing them how to win. They each left that guy to prove that they were the driving force behind their championships and that they could win elsewhere. What better way for Brady to prove to be more like LeBron than to go to a third team and win a championship? My goodness, it's very LeBron-esque of him.
All right, I think it's a little rude to LeBron there, Broussard. LeBron has managed to win his titles without leaving just a smattering of cheating allegations in his wake, but that's neither here nor there. I would feel about this the way I feel about all of these stories. It's nauseating. And now we're like, hey, do you guys realize what the producers do to me before the show? They're like, hey, Nick, we got a Brady topic. I'm like, okay, fine. He's a Super Bowl champion. What is it? They're like, let's talk about what Brady's going to be doing in 2023. In 2023? What? 2023? I now got to worry about this guy? It's nauseating, Wilds, and I imagine your answer is going to be even more so.
First of all, you're not lying. You literally in the production meeting, like, I don't know, guys. Can we put more Bob Pettit in the show? Can we do a Giannis all-time ranking? I was like, no, dude, we're talking football now. Can't have more Bob Pettit in the show. Every day we have Bob Pettit in the show. Shout out to Mr. Pettit. Okay, hey, Broussard, I thought you were going to say LeBron-esque, and you was like, oh, man, he's stealing my answer. Because you were drafted by Cleveland, you went to Florida, you got a championship, you go back to Cleveland, win a championship. Because that's what I could see happening with Mr. Brady. Ooh. Come up in Foxborough, go to Florida, and go back to Foxborough. And so my answer is Photoshop time. I think we made a Photoshop of what that would look like. Nick, you know that I've been trying to put a lot of Photoshop. There it is. Boom! There you go. Hey! Back in Foxborough. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick reunited once again. So there you go. The latest Patriots Photoshop for me as we look for our quarterback.
Jenna, you know what my takeaway there is?
Yeah.
From Kevin Wilds? The take behind the take? Kevin Wilds. Faith in Mac Jones. Wavering. You did just draft a quarterback. You're already trying to replace him with a 50-year-old.
I'm like the Packers. I like to have a backup plan. I like that.
Okay, yeah. Like, wait, sure what is going on? Let's stick with football. Talk some Cowboys. Fox Bet Sportsbook has Dallas with the 9th best Super Bowl odds this season. In other words, kind of right there in the middle. Have they done enough to make it to the big game? We discuss that next. But first, Giannis stopping by a little Chick-fil-A for a celebratory 50-piece. Check this out.
Are you going to say your order?
Can I have a 50-piece? Sorry, I will put you. Can I put your camera? Do you mind or no?
Sure.
There's 150,000 people watching you right now.
Really?
Yes. So can I have please a 50-piece Mac Minis? 50 exactly.
Okay.
Not 51. Not 49. Chicken Minis. Yes. 50. And let me have a large drink, no ice, half Sprite, half lemonade.
Saturday on FS1, the biggest rivalry in baseball is back to kick off an MLB doubleheader. Yankees take on the AL East leading Red Sox. Then it is the Rays and Indians. It all begins Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Sox hanging on to that lead by like a game, I think, at last check. Speaking of baseball, time now for the weird and the wonderful from our national pastime. Once again, I give you Fernando Tatis. Padres Braves top 5. Tatis launching his 29th home run of the season. 411 feet to left center. It is so nice of him to just hand out souvenirs. Left, center, right, center. Kevin Wilds, what else you got for us?
Oh, we'll start with the weird Royals Brewers. Dozier hits short pop-up to left field. Christian Yelich calls for it. Terrified Adames I'm out of here. Savvy strategy. If you want to, clear the place out, you can just yell snake or something. Doesn't work if you're playing the Diamondbacks. Moving on to the wonderful. Some swimming news. Marlins Nationals. Juan Soto stealing second. Oh, the swim move. Rojas puts the tag down, misses everything. Other swimming news. Kate Ledecky swims Saturday morning, 8:15 Eastern. Weird. Shout out to Baseball Bros on Twitter for finding this. Mets, Reds, bases loaded. Jeff Hoffman dealing to Dom Smith. Hoffman points up to the sky if you look at it like, hey, it's a pop-up, fellas. Nope, wrong. Grand slam. Mets win up 3.5 in the NL East. And finally, the wonderful, we're going to head down to Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. Ground ball is short. Yankees AAA team throws a combined no-hitter over the Rochester Red Wings. Steve Ridings. No idea what's happening. All right, good job. Good guys, fellas. We're in AAA. Everyone's celebrating. What? What? Wow, guys, thanks. I thought it was a normal save. Nope, combined no-hitter. And that's the weird and the wonderful from the national pastime.
Yeah, because he's right. Because that's not a no-hitter. That's the only guy that had it right, Jenna. He knew they're celebrating a fake thing. Good job by him.
Let's get back to some football now, because football is quickly getting back to us. 49 days until the season kicks off. And for the Cowboys, always and only one goal, Super Bowl or bust. It has been 26 years since they have won the big game. And now with Dak healthy and his whole cast of playmakers ready to go, Jerry Jones putting last year's 6-10 record behind him and focusing on one thing. Take a listen.
The facts are that I would right now, if I could, and I knew had a good chance to do it, I'd do anything known to man to get in a Super Bowl. That's a fact. And there's nothing in my mind that can have a higher priority than that.
All right, Nick, this was your pick last year to make it to the Super Bowl, I think, coming out of the NFC. Have the Cowboys done enough to make the Super Bowl this year? It was.
What?
It wasn't?
What a pick.
What happened?
What a pick, says
You
Broussard.
can't brag
It was
about
a
any
terrible
picks,
pick.
Nick. If you did
You
that, you
have
can't
great
brag about
picks,
any
Nick.
picks.
That one wasn't great.
Oh,
No,
I'm
no, no.
sorry.
He was off
I'm
by
sorry.
like a hair on
quarterback
that one.
suffered a compound fracture of his leg. My bad. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that,
That was
Dak
the only
Prescott
problem,
was
yeah.
kind of his leg
That was the
snapped
only
like a
problem with
twig
the Cowboys.
in week 5. Who knows? We'll never know, actually, buddy.
Still bad
Who knows what was going to happen? By the way, number one offense in football, actually. Wilds, look it up. Record schmecker, number one offense in football.
Okay.
Jerry Jones sounded like he was throwing down the Mike Vrabel gauntlet almost. Like, I'll do anything to win a Super Bowl. Unfortunately for him, it sounds like instead of doing that, it should have just been like, but invest in a secondary. So here's the problem. Cowboys should have a good to very good offense. Now, I don't think they're going to have the number one offense in football, as some have speculated, because I actually don't think their offense, aside from Zach Martin, has any great players. They have a good quarterback. They have a good running back. They have 3 good receivers. They might have the best combined receiving core in football, but we just did that top 10 receivers in football. We were like, man, there's 4 or 5 guys left off this. Could be 15, and nobody mentioned Amari Cooper. But Cooper and Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, it's a great trio. And I like their linebacking core. But and I think they'll win the division, Broussard. I'd be shocked if they don't win the division. But in the playoffs, when you're going to have to play Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Trey Lance with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays or Matt Stafford with Sean McVay calling the plays, no matter who you run up to into the playoffs, or Tom Brady, assuming the Bucs make the postseason, you're going to have to be able to stop the run or stop the pass. And the Cowboys have a mediocre pass rush. Their secondary is first and second year guys. And I just don't think you can win 3 straight playoff games with a bad pass defense unless you have a super elite offense. And I think the offense will be a tick beneath that. So with that said, while I've not yet picked the Super Bowl out of the NFC, I will not be picking the Cowboys, Broussard. I do not think they have enough to make it through the NFC playoffs with that pass defense.
Well, look, the question wasn't will the Cowboys reach the Super Bowls. It was, did they do enough to give themselves a chance, right? Could they reach the Super Bowl?
Sure.
I'm not picking them. My pick in the NFC is Tampa Bay. But I will go, yes, they did enough because, as you said it, Nick, they're going to win the worst conference or worst division in the NFL. All right, I get it. Washington is pretty tough. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's your answer at quarterback? No. The Cowboys have the best quarterback in the division by far. So they win the NFC East. You get a home field game in the first round, and then you're in the tournament. And you mentioned that they might have to go against Aaron Rodgers. Well, they might not, because we don't know what's going on in Green Bay with all his shenanigans. Then I look at the rest of the NFC. San Francisco, I do like better than the Cowboys. Seattle, I think, is right there with the Cowboys. And then the Rams, you know, Matthew Stafford's never won a playoff game. So other than Tampa Bay and San Francisco, those are only two definitive teams I put ahead of the Cowboys, assuming they're healthy. So I agree with you. I think the offense was not quite as good as the numbers suggested last year. A lot of those games, remember, you're playing from behind, you're rallying against prevent defenses and things like that. But they will be good if they're healthy. I think Ezekiel Elliott, we've all seen the pictures of him with his biceps and his six-pack again and all that. He's got a lot to prove. He has been written off. All right, it hasn't been just, oh, this was a bad year for Zeke. He's pretty much been written off. So I think he'll bounce back and be motivated. On the defensive end, that's the big thing, Nick. And look, in the NFL, coaching is more important than any other sport. And Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator. I think that's going to pay huge dividends over what Mike Nolan did. Leighton Vander Esch, they didn't pick up his 5th year of his option. So I think he's going to be motivated. I like Micah Parsons, that draft pick. Kelvin Joseph, I think, helps the cornerbacks, the defensive backfield. So I think the defense won't be great, but it will be pretty good. It was a top 10 defense before Mike Nolan got there. And I think Quinn can get them back to being 10, 11, 12 in the league defensively, good enough to win the NFC East and get in the tournament. And once you're there, you got a shot.
All right, I've got better news for the Cowboys faithful out there, Broussard. You're basically already in the Super Bowl. Week 1, you open up in Tampa Bay. That is a must-win game. So rather than talking about, you know, after Week 17 and after the playoffs, we get to the Super Bowl, win the first game. I don't want to hear any drama about it. You're in. That's where the Super Bowl was. You're playing Tom Brady. You got a huge audience. And then after that, you don't play a team with a winning record last year till week 11. So that's, remember when you like went to school or you went to college and you're like, man, I'm going to go home and see my folks at Thanksgiving. That's how long it is until the Cowboys play a team with a winning record. So Nick, to me, it is a must-win game, and I will root for the Cowboys. I will believe in the Cowboys, but if they lose that first game, I'll be out on the Cowboys, and I invite you to join me. And I know what you're saying, like, oh, Wilds, it's Tampa Bay. You're playing the Super Bowl champs. No, Mike McCarthy, you know how you're supposed to have a good record off a bye week? You didn't put Nick back on. He's flabbergasted. You know you're supposed to have a good record after the bye week. Mike McCarthy, you had 8 months to prepare for this game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got no new players. They brought everybody back. They're going to do the same stuff. Figure it out. You supposedly watched every gosh darn game in the barn in Appleton, Wisconsin. Now you just need to watch the Bucs game. They're going to do the same stuff. They're going to throw the ball long. They're going to rush Dak. You should be able to beat them and start your season off on a strong foot.
Well, listen, so there are a few things there.
Brady.
What?
Honest with you.
I also, if I'm Mike McCarthy, I'd want to know a few things. One is, am I going to have my all-pro left tackle against the Bucs, unlike the Packers or the Chiefs did? And is Tom Brady going to bring his hand-picked refs from the Super Bowl that obviously flipped that entire game at the end of the first half? Because if so, they're going to be in real rough shape. But I look at the schedule a little differently, Broussard, than Wilds does, which is even if they lose that first game, because the next... I know you said they don't play a team with a winning record until week 11, But they also, forget winning record. I mean, the Eagles are going to be terrible. The Panthers, I think, are going to be awful. The Giants, I don't think, are going to be good. Patriots should be okay, but the Broncos will be really bad. They have an opportunity to get off to an excellent start. The best team they play in the first 6 weeks, aside from Tampa, should be the Chargers. But because the game against Tampa is on a Thursday, they actually get the little extra time to rest before the Chargers game. The Chargers, meanwhile, in week 1 are on the road on the East Coast. They'll be coming all the way back west, and Tampa will have extra days. So I do think the schedule plays out very well for the Cowboys, particularly early.
Whilst they won't be Tampa Bay. All right, but that's okay. As Nick said, look at the rest of the schedule. And one thing we know about Dak Prescott, he cleans up against losing teams. His struggles are against the winning teams, but the losing teams he cleans up. So they should have a strong record, which again puts them in a good situation once they get to the tournament.
Good take.
Dak Prescott, a winner among losers, according to Chris Broussard. Back talking hoops now because Nick is going to break out his end-of-season player pyramid next. But first, Giannis spreading the love to greater Milwaukee. I loved watching every second of it. Check this out.
Let's go! Let's go! Oh, come on. Just touch it. Can I touch the trophy? This is, just go one time. Just touch it. Fast, good. Oh! Okay, that's it.
Back here, first things first, we got Antoine back with us. Antoine, let's talk some Lakers now. A report came out yesterday that they appear to be looking for a point guard this offseason. Also reported that 2 options they're considering are LeBron's banana boat buddy Chris Paul and Wizards point guard Russell Westbrook. CP3 going to LA could really shift the balance of power out west. But Antoine, who would you rather see with the Lakers, CP3 or Russ?
Man, this is so hard for me because I'm the biggest Westbrook fan, and I want him to win a title so bad. I believe he's the hardest working basketball player in the NBA. But this is tough for me. But Chris Paul would be a better fit for the Lakers. I think for Chris, being able to play less minutes, play with another good ball handler, another playmaker, and LeBron James would be great for him. And then also, Chris has had an experience playing with a ball-dominant guy. I think playing with James Harden, he learned how to play with a ball-dominant guy. He's a better spotter, three-point shooter than Russ, so he can fit into the offense that way where he still is going to be able to make threes. It's just a better fit. And then if LeBron needs to take, both of those guys can help each other out minutes-wise, I think would be great. They don't have to play long minutes with those 2 guys because you got 2 guys on the floor with AD, assuming AD is doing the heavy loading, to be able to make plays. So I just think the better fit would be Chris Paul over Westbrook. I don't think Westbrook is ready to stop getting triple-doubles and being ball-dominant the way he is. So Chris Paul for me.
Yeah, Twan, this isn't even close for me. It's Chris Paul, and that's with all due respect to Russell Westbrook, who I love, but his game just would not fit with LeBron's. LeBron only likes to kind of give up control of the ball to a guy that he feels is a smart decision maker, and Russ just isn't really that. I mean, Russ isn't going to make the wisest decisions with the basketball, so I could see that being a problem if he were playing there with LeBron. We know he doesn't really shoot the jumper that well. And Russ is better playing really up-tempo. Even if he's in the half court, he's just playing fast. Whereas LeBron likes to play a slower, more deliberate game. So I don't see that as a match at all. Chris, I see as a match. Now, I'd like to see him go back to Phoenix. I think he will go back to Phoenix. But I'm warming to the idea of him playing with the Lakers. Obviously, that's a big 3 to match up with Brooklyn's big 3, and Milwaukee will still be around. So I would love to see those 2. They've been great friends for so long, play together. Of course, Chris's family is still in Los Angeles, so it would be a lot of fun if it happened. The thing is, it's pretty unrealistic, not impossible, But Chris will have to take a big-time pay cut because I don't see the Suns doing a sign and trade for what the Lakers' pieces are. So Chris would essentially have to give up a guaranteed $44 million to play for about $9.5 million for the Lakers. Yeah, he wants a ring. Does he want it that bad? I don't know. So I don't think it happens, but I would like to see it, and I'd certainly pick Chris over Russ.
All right, by the way, Broussard just can't quit the Nets. We are 34 hours removed from the Bucks winning the title. And Broussard's like, well, if the Lakers got Chris Paul, they'd have a big three to match up with the Nets, or maybe the Bucks if somehow the defending champs who actually won the title were to get back there. So here's the thing. I'm going to throw a bit of a grenade in this because obviously I would take Chris Paul. But I would take Chris Paul for the Lakers over Russ. I would take Malcolm Brogdon in a heartbeat for the Lakers over Russ if he were available. I would take Mike Conley. I would take Kyle Lowry. Ooh. I might even say,
you're right,
bring back Lonzo rather than Russ. And Antoine, you think I don't love Russ? I love Russ. He's my 6th favorite player ever. If you want the list, that'll be in the post-show meeting. I love him. I have massive respect for him. But I don't think he would help the Lakers at all. Unless Adam Silver, in a quest to continue, they added the play-in tournament. We've talked about a mid-season tournament. If he's going to remove the three-point line, then I'll listen to it. But in a league where shooting has never mattered more, adding a non-shooting point guard to go along with LeBron and AD just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I love him as a competitor. I've enjoyed watching his career, but I don't think he would make the Lakers better. Like, there's a lot of guys I think Antoine would be better for the Lakers than Russ.
I agree with you. I agree with that when you think about the Kyle Lowrys, the Mike Conleys. Those guys can accept a different role, and they're older in their career. And I just think Russ coming off a monster year where he set the triple-double record, I think he's still playing at a very, very high level, being a ball-dominant guy. So that's where he doesn't fit in at. And LeBron is still going to want to handle the basketball majority of the time. But I think with Chris Paul, what makes it so intriguing is that he respects Chris Paul. They're good friends. It will make LeBron James' game even easier because he will force LeBron to go to the block, which LeBron doesn't like to do a lot. But I think with Chris, he would do that more just so it'll work. LeBron would make those adjustments. His basketball IQ is better than anybody's in the league. So he will make those adjustments to make it fit for Chris Paul.
So, all right, well, 2 things about Chris Paul, Antoine. Specifically about Chris Paul staying in Phoenix. Don't you think it would just be fundamentally odd and for Chris Paul to make it to the finals with Monty Williams, to be able to take Ayton's game to the next level, for him to develop a relationship with Devin Booker, and then just be like, I'm out. I'm going to go take a pay cut. Like, why are you leaving? It's like we were literally 2 games away from winning the finals. Don't you think that is fundamentally weird to just, I mean, I understand if he wants to go back in for personal reasons, but for the basketball side, it feels like Phoenix is the perfect fit for him. Don't you think it'd be weird for him to leave Monty Williams?
I think for both. I think for both it wouldn't be a good. It would be a bad decision for him to leave. I think obviously financially, you think about $44 million on the table. You don't leave that. This is still a business. You have to make sure you, at 16 years in the league, you want to make sure you make the right decision business-wise, even though you're chasing the title. I think for this team, I just think Chris has 16 years. I think he wore down a little bit in the playoffs. I don't think he's at 35 minutes a night anymore. So he's going to have to take a little bit of a pay cut so they're able either to keep Cameron Payne or to go after another guard so you can shorten his minutes a little bit. But I think he should come back and give it another run with this team. They're young, but also we always talk about the one thing about we always talk about guys got to go somewhere else and play. The thing is, you got to get those guys on that team on top of Chris Paul got to get better. The Bridges, the Cam Johnson,
yes.
Ayton, they got to get better with them too. To make it work and make another run like that. But I would love to see Chris stay. I'm a loyalty guy. I like if he stay there, and they've done number right by him, and he's done right by that team.
Listen, I think he probably will stay also, Wildes. But if the money is so overwhelming, I think it'll trump it. And he's going to have the relationship with Monty Williams no matter what. Let me just ask you this quickly, Wilds. Do you think Chris Paul believes that next year the Phoenix Suns, with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton in that supporting cast, with him on it, would give him a better chance to be back in the finals than the Lakers with him on it, with LeBron James, Anthony Davis? Like, that's, if his most, I won't judge him no matter what he does. But if when he went home, he was like, the only thing I care about is getting back to these finals and playing a big role, then to me the decision is very, very easy if money is not a factor. But I can't imagine money's not a factor.
Yeah, I totally hear you, but I think Chris Paul perhaps has more confidence in his game and the Suns than maybe the outside media does. My issue, Broussard, is this, and it's probably unfair, but I'm going to say it anyways. If you team up with LeBron and get a ring, that's LeBron's ring. I mean, you get a physical ring, but like Dwight Howard's a champion. I'm happy for Dwight, but that's LeBron's ring. It's not like it's almost a different ring. Then maybe they should give you a different ring. You can get it. Giannis has got the big ring, and then if you win LeBron, you get just a smaller. It's a silver ring. It's still very beautiful. So it would be kind of weird, I think, if Chris Paul finally gets his ring and it's like, yes, I did it, the way Karl Malone wanted to do it when he joined the Lakers. It just seems odd to me.
Wiles, I'm totally with you, and I was about to go there before I heard you say it. Look, it wouldn't be legacy changing if Chris won this ring with LeBron. Okay? It'd be great because obviously he wants to win, and he would finally be a champion. And even though Nick and I have him in our top fives regardless, a lot of people don't. This would not, in many people's eyes, those who don't already have him ahead of John Stockton and Jason Kidd and maybe even Steve Nash and Walt Frazier and a few others, this winning a ring with LeBron wouldn't make them say, oh, Chris got a ring, Stockton didn't. This would be more akin to the Jason Kidd ring that he won in Dallas, the Gary Payton ring that he won in Miami. Those don't change their legacies because they were role players at that point. So I'm with you completely on that, Wiles. Nick, I do think Chris is smart enough to know, yeah, I'd have a better chance of winning it with the Lakers, but he plays a bigger role with the Suns. And finally, I got to say this. We know Chris is the president. Yeah. We know he's the president of Players Association, and his decisions financially affect the whole league. And LeBron feels that way too. So if Chris were to leave $44 million on the table to go play for 9, he understands that other teams would start using that in negotiations with other players. Hey, Chris Paul did this to win, and I don't know that he wants to do that.
No, that's fair. The only pushback I'll give you is Jason Kidd and Gary Payton, and Kidd was a very important player on that team. Antoine won the ring with Gary Payton. Antoine was a starter and a huge part of that team. No disrespect to Gary. Gary was not really a part of the playoff rotation, like when you guys won the ring. But
he was big in that game 3, though, right, Twan?
He had a game,
y'all were down. Yeah.
But
game 3, that was the key game.
But my point is, totally fair, and I'm not trying to disrespect it. My point is, none of those guys were coming off a year where, you know, the smartest, best-looking NBA commentators said they were league MVP, like Chris Paul just did. So, like, let's be honest about that. So, like, I mean, he's in a different spot, Jenna, than those guys.
But CP3 joining the Lakers after ending their season a few months ago would definitely be wild. Thanks, Twan. We got to talk some Tom Brady. Could we really see the GOAT play for a third team? Tell you why we're asking. But first, Giannis holding on tight to them trophies.
These trophies are not leaving my side. What if all of a sudden I wake up and this is all a dream? These trophies, these trophies are my security, basically. Like, I touch them and I know this is real.
Time now for stories to start your morning. Sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Giannis closing out the finals with a very inspiring 50-point Game 6. Good enough for finals MVP honors. So, Nick, we've checked in a number of times this year on your NBA player pyramid, your hierarchy of how the best players in the game rank today. You revealed your pyramid earlier in the show. Broussard, I'm going to start with you. What are your gripes with it?
Yeah, it's a lot of gripes, Jenna. It's a lot of gripes. It's a lot of gripes. If I can boil it down to one thing, it is the personal nature of Nick's pyramid. It's supposed to be objective, and this isn't the least bit objective, and he knows it. He tried to make us think it was objective because he doesn't have LeBron number one. All right, because, you know, but here's the thing. LeBron went out in the first round, and Giannis just won a championship, so he can justify it that way. So here's what's personal. James Harden's on the 4th tier. We know you don't like Harden because of the way he left Houston. He should be up there ahead of Steph Curry. Second personal thing. Chris Paul is way too high.
I'm a known Steph Curry fan.
That's because... Chris Paul is too high because you got to justify your MVP vote that he should be MVP. So that was personal as well. Kawhi Leonard is way too low. Kawhi's too low because, you know, he's LeBron's nemesis. He's LeBron's nemesis in LA, so you got him too low. Yes, he's LeBron's nemesis. And then you got AD too low because... It makes LeBron look better if they come back and have a great year last year. He did it with a 5th-tier player as his teammate. So, I'm going to get texts about this. This is too personal. This is way too personal, Nick. That's my main beef with it.
Okay,
you got to be objective.
Let me explain how absurd everything you just said is. First of all, I've been making these pyramids publicly and privately for 13 years. This is the first time LeBron was not at the top of it. It's very sad for me, but because I'm an arbiter of truths, I must speak the truth that Giannis currently is at the top of the pyramid. That's first of all. Second of all, there's an entire section of Warriors Twitter that is going to be excited to hear that my personal narratives evidently involve elevating Steph Curry. Tell my mentions that for the last 5 years because they'll be happy to know about it. And the last one, it's a personal narrative. I'm downgrading Anthony Davis. Do you realize how much drama I'm going to have to deal with after the show for having Anthony Davis on that tier? This is not good for me. I mean, at the next clutch cocktail party, I'm going to be looked at funny, but he was hurt. He didn't play great this year, so I'm going to have to deal with all of it. The Chris Paul thing, Wilds, you know what justified my Chris Paul MVP vote? The playoffs justified my Chris Paul MVP vote. That's what happened there. So I Broussard, with these personal attacks, I'm not going to stand for it much longer. I'm telling you that much right now.
Okay, you're going to get a lot of guff because not only did he move AD down, but you talked about a clutch cocktail party without mentioning Lobos Tequila with specialized anejo. And my issue is this. All year long, you've been ripping poor Brandon to shreds because the Nets didn't play any defense. Like, defense matters, Brandon. And then the defensive player of the year, who before the year you had on the 6th tier, is now all the way down in the doldrums of the 10th tier. Why did he get demoted, you might ask? Is it because he led the league in field goal percentage? Maybe. Is it because he led the league in blocks? I don't know. Possibly. How about leading the lead in rebounds? How about driving the Jazz? Well, kind of be in the passenger seat. Donovan Mitchell's driving to the #1 record in the regular season. But poor Quinn Snyder makes a bad call and has him out there getting exposed. Not his fault that Ty Lue ran a system that exposed him. He doesn't deserve to be dropped down that far because Quinn Snyder can't utilize him in a savvy way.
Okay, so let me just ask you this quickly on Rudy Gobert, who, by the way, he made the top 47 players in the league, and also, if it was just French players, he'd be #1. So it's not disrespectful. But Wilds, let me ask you this. What is the adjustment Quinn Snyder was supposed to make? Tell me. Quinn Snyder was supposed to do what with Rudy Gobert?
Give him a breather. Give him a breather. Get a 40-minute breather.
Exactly. Yeah, you act like Ty. And guess what? You know how Ty Lue, and I love Ty Lue, he's a great coach. But you know how he discovered how to make Rudy Gobert a negative in the playoffs? He just watched all of the Rudy Gobert tape from the playoffs. It's like, oh, hey, what did Houston do? What did the Nuggets do? What did every team that beats the Jazz in the playoffs do every year? Oh, they made Gobert a total non-factor on defense, and he makes himself a non-factor on offense. So, like, this idea that I'm being unfair to him, no, I'm being very fair, because there are Nikola Vucevic fans out there who are like, hey, why isn't he on the pyramid? I'm like, yeah, I got to put Rudy Gobert on there. He's top 47 player in the league. So, yeah, there are. Trust me. And by the way, the Nikola Vucevic fans, they're very close with the Nikola Jokic fans, and none of them are fans of me this year. I'm dealing with all of it. Got a lot going on. So luckily, the Greece fans are now are happy with me here. What I am so amazed by is this. No, because Antoine talked about it earlier. It is not controversial right now to say Giannis is the best player in basketball. I know that Stack disagreed, and it's not like it's a unanimous thing. But Giannis, in the span of 2 weeks in the finals, really made it to where saying he is the best player in the world doesn't get a ton of pushback. But everything else you guys said really hurt my feelings. I got to tell you. It was unnecessary.
Stop dissing Kyrie.
And he likes his chicken.
Stop dissing Kyrie.
Chris Broussard, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.